This is San Francisco.
Hi, this is Toshio Moronic, and I'm a sometimes journalist who has reported for Al Jazeera in these times, Truth Out, and I also do some writing that is less journalisty. I have a book coming out. It's called Miss Major Speaks. It is a collaboration with the iconic, to use a very overused word, Miss Major. So you can pre-order it from anywhere books are sold. Today I have...
Hi, and I'm Gemma De Cristo. I don't know how to introduce myself. I'm just going to say I'm along for the ride, but you may see me along many rides.
Oh God, I hope so. Yeah, well, strap in.
Yeah, I like a free ride somewhere.
Okay, well, this ride might be more like ride along, perhaps, because today's topic here in San Francisco, we're going to be talking about an allegedly hot cop with gay admirers in the Castro district who was turned by the SFPD and corporate media into an object of copaganda. That is, until the hot cop of the Castro got into trouble with the law himself, and in a shocking twist was actually let go from the SFPD. I say shocking because the police will hire almost anyone, and they almost never fire anyone, so he kind of managed to pull off a feat. But more generally, this is a story about how cops are terrible, and how there are lots of thirsty gay patriots who like to inflate the egos of said terrible cops, and they're also terrible.
Thirsty Gay Patriots sounds like it would be a movie title.
Yeah, I bet it could be a porn based on the Mel Gibson film.
A series.
Our story starts. Officer Christopher Kohrs is an army brat born on the U.S. military base in Seoul, South Korea. His family later moved to Belmont, California, which I personally had to look up, and it's on the peninsula in San Mateo County.
It's a very, very small city, I think.
Yeah, maybe he might be the most famous hot cop from Belmont, California. He was a frat boy and football player in college at Ohio's Miami University and moved back home to Cali after graduation to work, quote, purifying human growth hormone at Genentech.
So he was raised in the military, played football, and joined a frat. What are the odds he would become a cop? I'm shocked.
Well, not before he was purifying some HGH down in Genentech, which is a giant biotech company whose headquarters are down on the peninsula as well, south of San Francisco. Did you see Planet of the Apes, the James Franco?
I did. The unfortunate ones. Well, less good than the ones from the 1970s. Less political critique.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, in it, I don't know, maybe you remember the chimpanzees hide out in Muir Woods. There's a final showdown between the apes and humans that goes down on Golden Gate Bridge. And Genentech is represented as Genensys, an evil corporation testing on apes and euthanizing apes. And it's based on Genentech's actual testing lab on the peninsula. So that's my tangent.
Yeah.
Anyway, he got bored, Officer Kohrs, and eventually later took a more exciting job in law enforcement, I guess. It was more exciting than the HGH at the SFPD. There, in his 30s, it wasn't until he was 39 when he got his 15 minutes of fame, or infamy, however you want to call it. He'd been assigned to patrol the Castro district on foot when he started to get noticed by the gay trolls who want more, U.S. intervention in local...
It was the first time any of them had paid attention to a 39-year-old, though.
That's true. He was well past his prime at that point.
But he did, to be fair, he did join the cops after his Saturn returns.
I don't know that much about astrology, but I'm going to take your word for that. So, and just know that, that probably means something very, very bad. And that you're not.
I think it means he found his true self more than more than it could be excused as a youthful transgression. So we've
he knew who he was by this point in time.
He came out, if you will.
He came out as a cop, and
Transitioned.
at 39, he started to get noticed by these gay trolls who want nothing more than for the U.S. government to say you are valid.
Yeah.
You.
Inclusion. Mm-hmm. Expansion of U.S. empire, police. To
include me in
the people that it historically has targeted.
I want in. So these are the type of gay trolls who start giggling when they lay eyes on a straight man in uniform, whether or not that uniform belongs to the SFPD, which is an institution notable for being very racist and very abusive of people who are poor and marginalized in pretty much any way. The SFPD has a 9-person PR team overseen by a director of strategic communications who was, not shockingly, gay. And this strategic communications team basically exists to cover up all the bad things the department is doing on a constant basis.
And I bet that kid, when he was younger as a little gay kid, never saw a strategic communications team people in the media. So he said, I'm going to be the first one for the cops.
Yeah.
You don't see that represented on your Law and Orders.
No.
NCISs.
Yeah, so in a way he was like on the bottom in...
he was a pioneer.
A dual discriminatory
double consciousness
scarlet letter that he was wearing in addition to the badge.
Right.
So that person was Matt Dorsey, who is
now running for district seat for San Francisco.
He's moving up.
We'll have to get to him later.
Yeah, I'll definitely inquire. The strategic communications team is responsible for choosing camera-ready police officers, giving them media training so they can be dispatched to the scene of police violence, because the department kills and injures a lot of civilians. The strategic communications team also trains and pays officers whose job it is to just post on social media. Mm-hmm. It wasn't one of these media-trained officers, though, who created the Facebook page for Officer Christopher Kohrs, a.k.a. the hot cop of the Castro. Rather, it was a gay member of the public. In 2013, Nathan Tatterson was an office manager at a tech company when he noticed Kohrs walking down Castro Street and had to stop to ask him for a pic. In his spare time, Nathan Tatterson created the Facebook fan page for the officer, and it quickly gained north of 50,000 likes after features in local media and some gay news blogs like Towel Road and Queerty,
Queerty I vaguely remember.
Mm-hmm.
That's not too before my time.
I guess it still exists. Somehow, I don't think it's gotten any less conservative, and so it's the perfect place to give a cop an ego boost.
Yeah.
The SFPD strategic communications team was loving it. Kohrs was showered with positive comments online. For example, Carolee Nicholas noted, "See, I was right. There are some really awesome police officers that do amazing, wonderful things for other people. This man is a prime example. Superman has nothing on Officer Kohrs. Much love and respect to a real hero. See, heroes don't wear capes. They wear combat boots and badges." So I guess the awesome thing that he did for other people was to pose for pictures and bring a little joy.
I think it makes a lot of sense when you think about the PR team being so central, because a lot of police authority is representative, right? A lot of what we think of as policing is defensive architecture, fences, gates, Ring doorbell cameras, so they don't have to necessarily be on or be doing anything, so to speak.
That's
you
true.
just have to be there and in our mind, kind of a panopticon type thing, to bring in another gay.
Is the architect who created the panopticon?
No, that's Foucault.
Okay, gotcha.
But I don't know if the panopticons, I think from the 18th century, I think it's Bentham. I don't know if he was gay. He was British, so we wouldn't.
Jeremy.
We would have Jeremy, but yeah.
All right, well, I'll have to look into Jeremy a little bit more.
But sure. It makes a lot of sense. This PR is very central to our notion of fantastical safety.
Yeah, no.
Rather than real safety, of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Another commenter on the page, again, the page is called Officer Christopher Kohrs, a.k.a. the hot cop of the Castro, which is unfortunately no longer on Facebook, but you'll find out why. Someone named Scott Tynan chimed in. Why is he always dressed? Stephanie Priest. I might have to add him to my damn they fine Pinterest board, because damn he fine.
I'm going to throw in some AAV there, I think, otherwise, right? You know? For cop thirsting, you have to.
It's been a minute since I've been on Pinterest, so I haven't been able to check out Stephanie Priest's pins recently.
I wonder what populates when we look her up. We'll have to do that.
I didn't even know that this was a thing, like mood boards for cops. Tom Shaw. Thanks, Officer Chris. Now I need a cold shower. When a German camera crew came to the Castro to shoot a news segment on Officer Kohrs, the Facebook group put out a call to the fans asking them to show up for the filming, to show that the local police had a lot of gay support. Facebook fan Bruce Thompson quipped, "Those Germans, they sure love their handcuffs."
So get a little bit of Holocaust humor in there too, maybe? Yeah, why not? We have combat boots. We were getting there.
It's also like a quintessential kind of Elder Castro gay kind of joke.
It is. It's a very, in the way that white queenie humor is very, very dismissive of any kind of human underlying original referent, right? From the parody. That's very true, right? So anything is ripe for a ironic.
You can compare anything to a phallus, I suppose. So.
Yeah, that always brings in there too, right? So it's about completion of the metaphor. Completion, I guess, right? As a theme of the.
You could say that. The Strategic Comms Office later sent Officer Kohrs as a representative to a cop convention to commemorate 9/11 in New York, and also the Castro bar called The Cafe, which I have been to.
And has closed, I think, since maybe 6. Did it reopen?
I think it did reopen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like the also-rans from RuPaul's Drag Race Canada will stop by on their tours.
Oh. So celebrities.
Yeah, big names.
And
Christopher Kohrs was one of those names back in 2015 when the Police Officers Association sponsored a Christopher Kohrs appreciation night at the cafe, and
Christopher Kohrs pride, if you will, right?
You could say that. I also like that what they asked him to do was the ice bucket challenge, which was big at the time.
Yeah, very another. We could put all of this in there. This is fantastic.
Some nostalgia.
We have ableism in there too.
Facebook,
non-profiteering. Mm-hmm. So we have a lot of.
Yeah.
They threw him a big celebration. At the cafe.
They did. So
this was and was this generated by the PR team, Matt Dorsey's the Jackie Robinson of strategic PR.
Absolutely.
Whatever,
yeah.
The Harvey Milk of the first one. Of strategic comms team members. People forget that about Matt Dorsey before he was a right-wing pro-police candidate for a city supervisor seat. He was a
right-wing pro-police
comms manager.
The interesting thing is he has admitted to, over the course of, so he's running for a local office here in San Francisco.
Yes.
And
against another terrible pro-police right-wing candidate, Honey Mahogany.
Yeah, who is also in the community and a big, has spent many a night at the cafe. An interesting thing that he has admitted is that
Matt Dorsey,
he's an ex-meth user, and I myself, I go to a recovery group in the Castro. Although it
all comes back to the Castro.
But it's based on the Castro.
That counts.
Based on the Castro. And he has noted, as the district where he's running for supervisor performs all these, like, they have these sweeps going on.
Anti-homeless sweeps, anti-user, anti-addict sweeps, all these.
Right.
We're on drugs 2.0 sweeps, yeah.
Well, he is an ex-meth user,
himself,
like, knows
right,
how you want to be treated when you're coming down, and also recently admitted that over the course of the campaign he has used because of the pressure.
Oh, okay.
Which is interesting.
That's interesting, yeah. And it's it's an interesting thing because it also goes to show you that people that would theoretically be targeted by systems, so him being also a user, but then advocating for policies that target especially poor users, it doesn't, in his own mind, contradict.
I guess it's politics, baby.
Yeah, it's Kohrs time. We're going to have to put a sound effect of a beer snap in here for this, I think. And maybe we can just say it's Kohrs time every time.
I like that. Okay, so Christopher Kohrs, Ice Bucket Challenge. It was a thing. It was on YouTube. It was on Facebook. It was probably on Snapchat. And
Grindr, Scruff, Christian Mingle, as T.S. Madison would
Adam for Adam.
Us.
That was like a place
Gay.com.
you went for P. But so the Ice Bucket Challenge, it was a thing that people were doing for ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease.
Allegedly, I guess, can we say
right.
at this point?
It seemed, I think we can objectively say that it was
and allegedly
thirst traps, like just wanting to pour ice
on your shirt. Yeah. It was a glorified wet t-shirt contest.
Of one.
A wet t-shirt contest of one. Someone's biography title that'll be after this.
Well, I'll be the first one at the signing on the book tour.
The book tour that's going to appear.
Instead of raising money allegedly for Lou Gehrig's disease, Officer Kohrs, Ice Bucket Challenge, donations went to a police charity. He also went on to model for the San Francisco-based clothing line Blade and Blue, which I looked up. It does still exist.
It still exists. I don't even know that one, yeah.
It's like menswear basics that it's like one of those things where it's like, why would I could just go to the like
Uniqlo
Gap or
the
Uniqlo.
Gap,
yeah. And
but would you be putting your gay dollars into gay pockets?
That's a tough one because
gay cop pockets, gay cop supporting pockets.
Right, because Blade and Blue also is a line that was started by a gay.
And is the blue back the blue or just?
I think it's actually not.
Oh,
but
surprising.
Then the person, like, I don't know his name, unfortunately. But you can go to Blade and Blue. You can send an email. You can ask, remember when you did this?
Yeah, give them a reminder. Yeah. Why'd you do that?
So Officer Kohrs, after this prestigious sort of series of events, even teamed up with his younger brother, Nathan, to launch a subscription sock service that got tons of positive local press coverage.
Now, when you say subscription sock service, I have to pause, because is this a service where you order socks to buy? Is it in bulk? Is it one at a time? Are they pulling up your socks? Do they tell you what socks match with your outfit?
All of these are questions that I know have been asked in people's mind's eyes.
Okay.
In the past, I'm sure of it.
The public's asking, yeah.
Yeah, and what I can tell you is that one of the local news stations, the headline of their post and their segment on it read, "Hot Cop, Cool Socks." A portion of the proceeds from pre-Christmas 2014 sales will be donated as Officer Chris Kohrs, a.k.a. Hot Cop of the Castro, teams up with his equally hot brother Nathan to launch a new San Francisco-based sock brand, Challenger X USA. So at the time, Challenger X USA styled itself as a purveyor of performance dress socks for the dapper athlete and active professional.
I think what's interesting, I don't want to suggest he should have been given other opportunities. I mean, hopefully he's doing well. We can only imagine, right? I really wonder why he settled on socks. And see, in my imagination, it's because he didn't... I imagine it because he was the hot cop. There must have been underwear or, like, jock straps that would have, or other menswear things. But I bet, because he himself is not gay, which I don't think we've said, right? And he's probably adamant about this, but at the same time, he loves attention. It's kind of a sort
absolutely.
of...
Yeah, that was the whole
kind
thing.
of DL, whatever, energy about it, right? So I imagine he had to turn down a lot of more erotic or implicatory gay clothing, like jock straps or even like tight jeans, or Inch's underwear was around at the time, I think, right? Things like that, even... Or like workout clothes, things that could be, because socks. Not to assume people don't have a sexual attraction to socks. Feet are very. You're right. I'm sorry. I'm telling on myself. But professional performance socks maybe comes off as a little less directly in a mainstream way sexual that he would maybe be aware of, right? And, I mean, not that straight people aren't into feet, but they're not as maybe. There's not as much coding and
you wouldn't lead
flagging
with that,
signifying.
It's like if you're looking for what I guess, because it was carried briefly by Nordstrom, and so I'm guessing like it was a girlfriend of some day to evening dapper athlete, active professional who likes to wear the same socks when he goes to the club, and the girlfriend could
be okay with that. And it was kind of what I was leading into is that it kind of socks sort of felt like the no homo of the clothing world at the time. I'm just and that's in no way to say that if he were 100% gay, he wouldn't be just as awful and this wouldn't be just as awful. But I think it's a way to say it's interesting. A very common phenomena in gay, especially kind of white gay male, I'm putting it in quotes, culture is lauding straight men that probably kind of hate you or want to kill you, and there's also that in there too, which makes sense in terms of a cop, which is someone who will kill you and does. There's a lot of interesting about the deathly nature of desire. I think we can, not that we need to go on a...
No, I think that is a rabbit hole that should be explored. The
socks are a grave. Yeah, we get something like that.
Yeah, perhaps not tonight because we don't want to keep everyone until the early morn, but I think it should be noted that today dapper athletes and active professionals fortunately have to turn elsewhere for their socks because on November 29th, 2015, it all came crashing down, literally.
Market crash, bubble burst.
The bubble burst on Officer Chris Kohrs, who was behind the wheel of his orange Dodge Charger with his brother and fellow sock entrepreneur Nathan in the back seat.
Soccerpreneur, as we say.
And a friend, 45-year-old Dr. Norman Banks, up front. The three had just left a club in Fisherman's Wharf, which was the Fort One Bar and Lounge. They were the last to leave. And I checked. Apparently, Fort One Bar is no longer, even after the bar, I guess, had recently been bailed out on this show, Bar Rescue. I'm familiar with it. It's like a restaurant makeover bar. Oh,
okay. So like the Gordon Ramsay show or diners,
for example. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So it also doesn't have a great track record of turning these things around. So there's not a lot of like where are they now stories that end happily.
Right. And again, just to draw a small note, he's at a aggressively straight bar area, I would guess, too. So for how much the Castro loved him, it's not as if he felt comfortable partying with the gays.
That's true.
Made him famous. Just as a note, I mean, again, not that anyone wants a cop at gay bars. There's already enough cops. But interesting. So he came from a bar in Fisherman's Wharf.
Yeah.
An aggressively touristy and straight area.
It's a weird place
and to drive.
For locals to, like, hang out. And I guess maybe you're looking for, who knows? But
tourists.
Like tourists? Like a one-nighter.
This was not Fleet Week. This was November, a little after.
Right. Yeah. That's the only time that's my only association other than, like, your random, like, moms and dads.
Yeah.
Kohrs was behind the wheel speeding through the financial district when he crashed into two pedestrians crossing at the intersection of Broadway and Montgomery Street around 2:20 a.m., smashing the car's windshields and leaving the two men bloody on the ground. Officer Kohrs was on medical leave from the department at the time due to a knee injury, but nonetheless jumped out of the car and sprinted away, ditching his brother and his friend, not to mention his victims, Victor Perez and Frank Vilches, who he left, again, in that bloody pile on the asphalt. Vilches almost died, and his medical bills totaled over $500,000. The impact of the crash left them both with broken jaws. Vilches broke his nose, neck, eye socket. I guess you can break your eye socket.
Oh, yeah, orbital.
Yeah, lost almost all of his teeth and suffered from severe brain hemorrhaging.
Wow.
And Officer Kohrs, well, he fled the scene and waited for a little over 8 hours before he ended up turning himself in to his own department.
Right.
So he was waiting it out until he could get a negative on a breathalyzer test.
Yeah.
So smart. One of the many perks of being a cop is...
I was just making sure this wasn't a whole ad for, and he's still wearing those performance socks.
I mean, it could have helped with, like, the sprinting away.
Well, that's what I was, in my mind, I was like, this isn't an advertisement for this, is it? Would they go this far to promote him?
I wouldn't not take that.
I wouldn't get, based on this whole PR, I wouldn't be surprised, so...
This is pure propaganda. I'm sorry. But again, one of the many perks of being a cop is you're almost guaranteed to never face consequences for anything. Mm-hmm. However, Officer Kohrs was not so lucky. He was charged with 2 felony counts of hit and run, which he pled not guilty to. Prosecutors were unable to collect evidence to indicate whether Kohrs had been intoxicated while driving, which would have brought,
more serious charges.
More
extensive charges, yeah.
His lawyer, Jim Lassert, maintains that Kohrs ran away out of fear of a, quote, very, very aggressive crowd of more than 100 people who had begun to gather by the time he got out of there.
And that was corroborated? That was true? There was 100 people at 2:30 in the morning in San Francisco?
No, there was a crowd. But
probably
I know
like 10.
In the financial district,
the financial district, you couldn't find 100 people after 6.
No.
Yeah.
This is down the hill from North Beach. So everybody's like in an Uber or driving drunk in a Dodge Charger. That said, the lawyer, Jim, later went on to say, this is a dangerous neighborhood, crowds form, and all types of things happen.
Which is a fascinating proposition. I want to hold one thing, too. Fascinating that he got the Dodge Charger, which is infamously the promise of military recruiters, right? Huh. Yeah, that's their selling point to especially kind of poorer youth, even though I think the majority military enlistment is middle-class people, but that's one of the selling points is you'll get that Dodge Charger. That may also be a common police retirement gift or something like that, too. It feels like the cop vehicle, despite it not being the actual patrol vehicle.
And the orange.
And the orange, just, confidence. I think it was just confidence. Mm-hmm. Confidence, baby, confidence. Mm-hmm. And to just also add the dangerous neighborhood part, right? I mean, the financial district is the financial district, not unlike in other parts of the world.
At 2:20 a.m.
2:20 a.m. Not a lot of people. Generally a wealthier area. Generally very,
security guards in the windows of these empty skyscrapers.
Condos that are high up. It doesn't even have the people that one could argue make it dangerous.
No,
it doesn't have people.
No.
It's not peopled, I would say.
This is kind of near the Transamerica building, which sure during the day and maybe not now, pre-pandemic, there was street life going on. Yeah. Not so much at 2:20 a.m. One of the many perks of being a cop is you are almost guaranteed to never face consequences for anything. Including
making up 100 people being there.
Right.
Which we also have to add to his performance.
His resume. Yeah, so
his sock commercial.
It's hard to tell. Was this a strategy of the strategic comms team? Was this a strategy of the lawyer? Was this a strategy of
It sounds
Kohrs
like
himself?
pure Kohrs. Pure Kohrs, like, coming at you.
You know Kohrs.
But it had to, I imagine he must have known to talk to a lawyer. I mean, as
well, I think
not
if
savvy
you,
as police are.
yeah, if you're a cop, you can afford the best of the best, and the POA, the Police Officers Association,
We'll pay for it, yeah.
they're gonna hook you up.
So he fled the scene and claimed that it was in the interest of his safety that he fled the scene.
Yeah, specifically it was out of fear, as his lawyer said, any of us would have done the same.
Any of us in our orange Dodge Charger, 2 a.m. speeding from, you can't keep me away from Fisherman's Wharf on any night, but any of us going to Fisherman's Wharf.
Well, and don't forget the socks.
And in our performance socks, which I'm not going to say they make you do crazy things, but
you feel fast.
You feel fast. You feel superhuman. And if you're already Superman, thanks original white guy, it's like the socks make you like double Superman. I don't want to get into like a DC hierarchy argument, but yeah, I would put, beyond Superman.
He had a lot of things going
Prime,
for him.
He had a lot. Yeah, he had a lot going on. He had he was empowered by Earth's Sun. He was emboldened. Yeah, it makes sense when you think about it. But again, this is also a good time to bring up the way the most absurd stories by police are legitimated and given some kind of legal, factual quality or weight, whereas extremely reasonable stories by people who are the victims of police violence or the survivors or, the people who receive the violence of police is treated as outlandish and suspect and never given any kind of credence or belief. So we can laugh, but we also have to realize that that's a common dichotomy or asymmetry or imbalance that goes on with police power and propaganda.
And I think that strategic comms teams they know this. Gay directors of strategic comms teams know this particularly well. It was an interesting outcome for him. He got 4.5 months in jail. When does that happen? The hot cop of the Castro Facebook account was deleted just prior to the crash, the hit and run. Kohrs eventually told his fans that he wanted some privacy, and it was weird timing because there was a few things going on. So in
this is before the hit and run.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's not
that's
a time
the sound of rewinding. I thought it was a record rewinding. I was
a wedding DJ, so I had to have these at the ready.
We share that.
So 2015 was the same year there was a text scandal at the SFPD. Do you remember this?
Of course, the racist text. You have to be specific, though. The 2015 racist text from the SFPD, because we're talking, it's an annual to quarterly tradition in the SFPD in particular.
Yeah. In this case, it was all over the local news and beyond because, I don't know, it felt like maybe it was just the fact that the officers in this case used just the least creative, like anti-black, anti-Latinx slurs you can think of, called quote-unquote femme officers fags, the classics, led to 7 police officers being put on paid administrative leave for almost 4 years.
That's tough. Wow, 4 years of vacation, of paid vacation.
That's kind of amazing.
Yeah, it's.
But it still didn't look good for the department, so I could totally see Kohrs either participating in racist and homophobic and anti-poor texting or being clowned by other officers, which he actually did say that some of the other officers,
because he was kind of gay by association, right?
And, the police department at the end of the day, it's an anti-femme, no homo kind of institution. One thing I will say that I think is very likely is that when Kohrs declared he no longer wanted to be considered hot cop of the Castro, well, the SFPD strategic communications team, and the POA had some kind of hand in it. So I would be interested in knowing those conversations. However, sort of interestingly, and another tangent, after Kohrs served time, one of the local news stations went back to interview him, and he had a lawyer file a motion to look into his firing, because he claims that the police commission, when they were having a conversation about whether this rendered him untouchable and therefore he must be fired. It is interesting. You hear the playback of the police commission meeting, and there's like a blip. And so Officer Kohrs says that there's a bunch of minutes that were cut from this meeting where his future was, on the table.
Debated, yeah.
Yeah, which could be true.
So he was terminated.
But
that probably was not as direct or clean-cut or automatic a decision, is what you're saying.
Right.
In other words, they probably were like, well, they didn't die. Or, give it 6 months and people will forget this happened.
Yeah, it only cost us about, probably $5-6 million in legal fees and medical bills.
Yeah, and I wonder if there's a discrepancy between how much is spent by the policemen's union and because he was off duty, right?
Correct.
So I wonder if it's different than if he'd killed people on duty. Would the liability been spread out in a different way? Or if the same thing had happened in uniform? But I don't know. Yeah.
He claims that he was so known that people were yelling, "Hot cop, hot cop."
Right. It's almost like those people jumped right in front of his car. He was targeted, is what he had.
Yeah, no, I mean, if he had his gun on him that night, it's surprising he didn't reach for it. Because
running away was pretty shocking. I mean, I think that's...
You've seen those, the motion pictures of the Beatles coming to America.
Right, that's what his experience was like. Yeah, screaming guys. He can't get what you want all the time. But yeah, I think it's interesting to think that this probably was not an automatic firing. So hitting two people while clearly drunk driving is not automatic termination for police. And fleeing the scene, which is a very illegal thing also.
Apparently his brother and his friend who was a doctor, his friend in the car, stayed behind and
attended to the people.
I mean, maybe.
Due to hope? Oh, it doesn't even say that.
Yeah, I wasn't able to ascertain that they did much for the people. I think they mostly just waited with the car. It wasn't that he hadn't done right by the police department, because, he said that upon his relinquishing of the title of Hot Cop of the Castro, that he had done it and taken on this title, all this weight on his shoulders. It was part of an attempt to show police in a positive light. Let's be honest. So it was also in reaction to, this was when there was a man in Stockton whose name was Jeremy, starts with a K, and I'm not going to remember it right now. But do you remember Hot Mugshot Guy?
No.
Okay. So there was a dude that ended up going on to fame and fortune because his mugshot was featured. It was like a bit of a meme. And it also...
A John Dillinger of our time, in a way.
Yes, I've never seen a picture of John Dillinger, but I know what you mean.
I think it was more the allure of the outlaw, is what I was going with it. Yeah.
So, the Hot Mugshot Guy actually went on to model in... Well, I think the only time... I only ever saw him in Fashion Nova, which I've never bought anything from.
But this was early Fashion Nova or later?
Early, when it was like hot.
Yeah, so that was a little bit more of a launch. It was a more prestigious role at the time.
So Jeremy Meeks.
I remember the image of him, yeah.
Yeah,
I've seen him as a model before. Yeah.
Right. And he modeled in Milan, he was in New York City at Fashion Week, and
this is related to Hot Cop, you're saying, somehow.
So he was kind of posed as like the antidote to, like, why are we lionizing these hot criminals when the people who should be...
is hot cops.
Yeah.
So it was really a PR, which, you know what? The law is only a response to transgression. That makes a lot of sense.
So, I mean, in the end, I think we'll remember Jeremy Meeks as kind of, you know, somebody who was a phoenix, whereas Officer Kohrs, after the 4.5 months in jail, disappeared. It was an unceremonious firing, of which perhaps some of the taping during the public proceedings, should have been public proceedings, may have been, according to him, cut. But he still maintains that he did his job by, showing police in a positive light. He mentioned, quote, "I'll be out in the street and random people will walk by holding their necks saying, 'I can't breathe. Justice for Mike Brown,' or 'Don't shoot me in the back. My hands are up.' It's just ridiculous what people will say, but I just keep walking and keep doing my job like I always do."
I like the inflection as the hot cops. I could see him snap. I could feel some snaps coming after he... Is he doing open mics? He might be there now.
I mean, he was
That's what it felt like.
He had to go through North Beach to get to the financial district from
there you go.
Fisherman's Wharf.
Fisherman's Wharf.
So maybe it's the last
only
thing
way.
he remembered before he
Right.
crashed into those guys. Abruptly, he relinquished the title, Hot Cop of the Castro. He completed his mission to show that cops are good people.
Thankfully, Hot Cop of the Castro, a title that has never been resurrected, we're aware, never been re-bestowed.
Apparently, there were a bunch of, gay cops who felt like...
we should get it.
Yeah, and he even...
Queer
he was
baiting.
an ally. He was an ally. He was like, I would like to, give this to... or kind of dedicate this. I don't know. He didn't name any particular officers because
just
maybe
general gay people is enough. You don't need.
Yeah.
Specific is a little too specific.
Yeah. So he did leave his fans.
He's not. He was the Harry Styles of his time.
Well, you'll be even more.
Is this Harry Styles? Is that where this ends?
So. I don't know how much of his songs Harry Styles is writing these days, but Kohrs did leave a short poem to his fans as a farewell, and it was one of the last posts on the Facebook page. "In the streets of SF, where crime will always lurk, I need to focus on getting back to work. Although the fan page will soon be gone, I am here to stay. And we will always be only 3 digits away." Yeah. So Kohrs was allowed to serve his 4 months in the Marin County Jail in a private cell because of his fame.
Right, your protected status or whatever the term is. Yeah.
As a hot person.
As a hot person, protected status. Yes, sorry.
So the Yelp reviews of Marin County Jail are much better than SF. I know a little bit about Marin County.
I only ever think of the George
jail.
Jackson.
Yeah.
That's always what I think of the courthouse.
Yeah.
The
Jeremy Jackson. Jonathan Jackson.
George Jackson and John Jackson.
Okay.
Jonathan Jackson.
Yeah.
Which Jeremy Meeks was on our mind.
Yeah.
It came through.
Jeremy Meeks wasn't there that day.
No.
A fateful day.
Only in spirit as an outlaw. So you know what? I mean.
So, yeah, I don't know. It sounds like it's maybe a choice. I'd be interested to look into whether, cops in SF, very few of whom actually live in the city, but...
Right. Oh, why he was put in Marin as opposed to San Francisco.
Yeah, there's some Yelp reviews that are like, place is chill, feels like summer camp, and if you do get arrested, there are worse places to get locked up.
Like Santa Rita.
Marin County. Yeah, for example. Yeah, like these
That's real.
COVID dens where, he was allowed to be in... I guess it would be considered solitary confinement, but it was a fairly short sentence, and he got to choose, which is it's not super common.
He got to choose his sentence.
He got to choose.
I also wouldn't put it past that. If they ask cops, like, do you want to go to jail? No, you don't. All right, well, I wouldn't put it past them. Out. It would be very fitting with what else we've learned in the last few years.
So now, ex-Officer Kohrs, he works in construction. In an interview with ABC7 in 2020, years later, he said he wouldn't go back to working for the SFPD, even if they let him. Quote, they could offer me season tickets to the 49ers, red zone seats, and I would still turn them down. And I love going to 49er games, so that's a big deal.
Just to clarify.
End quote. Yeah, to put a little period on that sentence.
Interestingly, I feel like SFPD salaries are so high, they could afford probably
to
decent 49er
for a
seats.
Season ticket.
Maybe not season in the red zone. I don't know what the red zone is, but
show up in your uniform.
I feel like that's another thing is that they get a stand on the field. I know that's true for basketball, right? Yeah. They get the Warriors games. I know basketball. Yeah.
And especially, he did have, a few different cases where he was injured and he got a bunch of, time off, including when he was in the Dodge Charger from the story earlier and hit the two men. Yeah. But I know that they do, stuff for, injured officers.
He would have he probably had a taste of the red zone when he had that knee injury. Yeah? Yeah, I'm guessing free tickets,
Yeah.
I'm just going to say he did. Let's just speculate. We can, all right. When surrounded by 100 people.
Well, this isn't journalism. And if the lawyers can lie, why can't journalists?
Exactly. Journalists need to lie in favor of the person instead of accept the lie of the police, which is lying by proxy.
It's true. Unfortunately, that's not the way that most journalism works these days. Now might be the time to unveil.
Is he here? Are you bringing out?
Straight from whatever condo development he's working.
He probably works for the builders lobby now too.
So
the builders union.
Unfortunately, I did not have a color printer. If anyone wants to donate some cash so we can get a color printer. We're ruffling a paper of his. He's here. He's wearing the Challenger X. Magazine. Y magazine. Yeah, it's like the SF Examiner.
The other thing we can say, since hot has been thrown around in this a lot, the bar is very low for the kind of people who will thirst after a cop or a military it's because
not to be looking.
He looks like my neighbor. I mean, who's not unattractive, but I just think it's like he's some guy. He's just some guy. I walk by this guy, I'm going to say 4 times a day, conservatively, And
how many of those times do you start sweating?
On a moderately brisky San Francisco day, never.
Okay.
Not my cup of tea. Yeah.
I think that is your answer. I feel like it was kind of a low moment for San Francisco if this is the best that we could do. For the thirst traps over in the Castro.
Yeah, if you're gonna, if it's gonna be someone who's gonna murder you, that's a thirst trap. I think you can. I think you can be a little more imaginative. That's all I'm gonna say. You could do
better. I don't know. These gays in the Castro. What's his name? Nathaniel Tatler.
I think the straightness was part of the allure too, right? And there's again, like I mentioned earlier, there's a oppositional nature or a self-lacerating nature of desire in there or something, with the straightness, self-loathing. Yeah, not to be too cliched, but I think in this case it's
I like the word lacerating.
Self-lacerating. I say that a lot.
And I also don't know that. I think they must know this. I mean, the worship of the
uniforms.
Of uniforms,
of militarization, of
heterosexual, heterodoxy.
Kind of the cis hetero patriarchal institutions of state violence.
Yeah, sexy. So, or, for a lot of these gays in the Castro, it is in any case enough to where you would bother to, like, in one case, one of the people that was photographing him admitted that he passed him, took some pictures, and then he passed him going back home on the street, and he was like, you know what, Officer Kohrs, those pictures earlier, they didn't turn out great.
You didn't pop in them. You're wearing lime. You don't pop in lime.
Yeah, so they did like a longer photo shoot at that point. And the rest was history. But yeah, I mean, if we're going to judge, I do feel like, the relic that was the, 12-month cop calendar. That
Firefighter calendar, too.
Yeah. Like all of these institutions that it seems like that's gone by the wayside, calendars.
Yeah, people are more suspicious of, and we began the podcast with this term copaganda and the kind of automatic legitimation of forces and institutions of state violence, right? Which can include firemen. I mean, I don't think they're entirely separatist people sometimes. We heard that 911 tape where the firefighter was complaining about cops. I thought that was funny.
Ooh, yeah, no.
I think it was in Texas. But on the other hand, a lot of state institutions are required to collaborate with police. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So that has to be in the picture of our hopefully current and ongoing suspicion of anyone in uniform.
Yeah, well, another episode that the listeners may recall or is coming up, depending on how we schedule them.
Depending on when you're listening to this, time is a construct.
Yeah, so there's the episode about how gay cops and cops in general in uniform were dismissed from the Pride Parade for 2 years and then came back.
Roaring back.
And the firefighters union was one of the big supporters of the boycott on the cop side to say we support the cops and we will stand with them, we'll boycott.
And a lot of firefighters were cops or aspire to be cops and vice versa. Right. So there's much more of a very obvious. It's very similar to the way the military flows into police and vice versa as well.
It's just so weird. Yeah, if that is true with the firefighters wanting to be cops, because the bar is so low, you can...
I think they may make more, too. And it's a way less dangerous job. I mean, being a cop is actually a statistically not very dangerous job. Being a pizza delivery guy is more dangerous. Or, sorry, pizza delivery person is more dangerous than being a cop or being any kind of, a farm laborer.
For
especially
example,
a migrant farm laborer.
I mean, we could name, especially in the wake of Uvalde and...
being a teacher,
I guess in the last month, there's been, those two cases where... In San Bernardino, the cops shot the girl who was running away from her father who
Pulse
killed her mother.
Pulse was a common example where there was never ballistic...
The guy who shot the place up. Right. And even more recently, I think, there were the cops that left the cop car on the train tracks.
Right, and the woman was injured, that had been arrested for, nothing. Or speeding or something,
So she was in the car, couldn't get out, and the train...
hit the car, and she was badly injured,
Yeah, and it's kind of wild because I guess the cops, the footage shows them, rummaging around to find something that might have been on her, because she was called in for, having some kind of weapon, I believe, and they just couldn't find it. So while she's bleeding, they're like, can we find something to, vindicate us as,
Yeah, there's...
She was dangerous.
The thing you're pointing out, right, on the one hand, the thing we mentioned about firefighters, a lot of... And not just firefighters, it goes the other way. I think you're saying a lot of people who commit mass shootings were in the military or wanted to be cops or wanted to be in the military. I think the kid in Uvalde wanted to be in the military. I could be wrong about that. But, and a lot of people aspire to be cops. The Pulse shooter, name escapes me. And then the other thing you're pointing out is that cops create retrospective narratives that exonerate themselves or make them look the heroes. You haven't really seen that with Uvalde, which is good that people have contested that. But with something like Pulse, we don't know how many people were actually killed by police.
Right.
To your
Yeah. I mean,
very similar to the hot cop story, that
bullets.
There's this absurd and unquestioned, no matter how absurd, unquestioned retrospective narrative that's just taken as the facts and the truth. And that's it's very related to how we started this with the idea of copaganda, right? They get this really intense representative authority.
Other takeaways, one lesson from Officer Kohrs: if you do find yourself in a hit and run, like 8 to 12 hours is a good
time to sober up.
Yeah. And, also ACAB. And also the same sentiment goes for people, we don't have a little acronym for it, but whose actual job is just to give cover to police and politician abuses. In this case, the gay Facebook fan page creator, I think, deserves a lot of that blame.
Yeah. For doing PR work probably for free.
Sure.
Which is, again, another one of the ridiculous angles we can add to doing state propaganda for free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, Major, in our book, which you can pre-order now from just about anywhere, Miss Major Speaks. In it, she speaks a lot about how, as a Black trans woman who has seen the worst of it, been around since Stonewall, which she's kind of most associated with. It's just that the cops know, like, the blue. They see the blue first. The blue uniform, color of your skin, anything else is second. In that spirit, ACAB.
Kill the hot cop in your head.
Thanks for spending time in San Francisco. This episode was produced by Kristen Siafi, Toshio Moronic, and Caitlin Wood. We release a new episode every week with early access and bonus episodes for subscribers of the show. To subscribe, go to patreon.com/SAD That's SAD Francisco, where you can help us cover the editing and transcriptions for the show. We'll see you back here soon.